what's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Hanging out today with Stephanie Kurtzuba.
Hello.
Brand new movie. Not a bad one to be in here.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of people you've probably never heard of in it. Yeah.
Nobody big. You know, this De Niro guy. I don't know what he's been doing.
He's an up-and-comer.
Yeah.
Real promising. Real promising.
Anyway, how's everything going?
It's going great. This is a really cool time to be part of something like this. I'm enjoying it.
I'd say so. So how did you jump into this thing originally?
Well, wow, what an incredible moment in my life that was. I was actually invited when I was doing The Wolf of Wall Street. Marty invited me to a table read of a script, and he said, just come and we'll read through. And you know, of course, I was like, yeah, sure, Marty, I'm there. Not realizing that these gentlemen, amongst others, were going to be at the table read. So I walked in and, you know, had that like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God moment.
Okay, guys, what's up?
But be cool, Steph, be cool. And that's where it all started for me. And then it was an evolution, I mean, a huge process from there, which it had existed even before I did that reading, to getting it made and on the screen. So, and I stuck along with it.
How long ago was it when you jumped in? How many years are we talking?
For me, that was 2012, and it's 2019. So, yeah, it was a minute.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It was a minute. These things take a really long time.
People don't understand how long it takes.
And fortunately, I don't age.
So you're like, yeah,
sure.
I'm good.
I'm good, yeah, sure. Just like I did 7 years ago. No, but it was quite a process for them to get it made. It was originally going to be, believe it or not, a different film and a different property. And part of the research that Bob did was to read the book, I Heard You Paint Houses.
Right.
And he took that book to Marty and said, you know, this is a fascinating story. And for whatever reason, they kind of decided, well, actually, no, this is a story that we want to tell. And from there, Steve Zalian came aboard, and it was a big process, but I'm thrilled to have been a part of the finished product.
Yeah, that story is really telling, because some other directors would be stuck in their ways and they're like, no, this is the film we're going to make. And he was like, no, we can adapt it. Let's change this thing up. I think that's great. I
mean, and such a testament to the kind of artists that they are, the collaborative type of artists they are, and to this relationship, obviously, that these men have shared over the course of their careers. You know, they're, I mean, in some ways, each other's muses, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So you can call him Bob, I'll call him Robert De Niro. You spend a lot of time with him. When you think about that time, what was most fascinating to you just about the on-screen stuff and the off-screen stuff?
Well, the thing that was most revelatory to me was to realize what normal people these legends are. Yeah. To be in the company of them is, of course, you know, intimidating. But when we started working, when the camera started rolling, when we started talking about the scenes and doing the scenes together, they were just other actors. I mean, and I don't know why that surprised me as much as it did, probably because the mythology around these amazing masters of their craft looms so large. But we started working, and I was like, oh, they just do what I do. I mean, like really, really well.
They're really great at it.
Really, really good at it. But and that was actually my revelation when I worked with Marty the first time as well on Wolf of Wall Street was, oh, he's like a normal person who happens to be a bloody genius. So. Lucky me. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you've worked with Scorsese before. How is he different in this movie, and how does this movie kind of compare to some of the other things you've seen of his in the past or worked on?
In terms of how is it different in terms of working with him from one to the other, they were obviously very different films. The Irishman had a very familial sort of sense of camaraderie around it. These guys all know each other and worked with each other so much. It felt very much like I was being invited into the inner sanctum of a family who's really comfortable. The process was very, I don't want to say relaxed, because it was definitely, like, the stakes were very high, I think, for everyone, but there was a trust amongst everyone. With Wolf of Wall Street, obviously that trust existed between Leo and Marty, but it was just a cast of thousands.
Yeah, that was a huge
I mean, this one
movie.
Is too, but I mean, that was just lots of people, lots of the time. This was lots of people here and there.
Right.
And Wolf was, you know, it was comedy.
Yeah,
and we had a lot of fun. So there was a little more sense of hijinks, perhaps. Marty has this unbelievably ageless quality about him, where he's very fleet of foot. He moves quickly, he thinks quickly, he directs and takes his moment with you, and then we're on and we're moving. So he's just very vital, and that remained true from my experience in Wolf to The Irishman. So
Wolf was an amazing movie. I really enjoyed that movie. That must have been a blast for you to be on, and especially your character too, just kind of cuts through all the BS, all the men in that situation.
I know. I love being that lady. I love being that.
That must have been pretty dope for you.
It was crazy cool because I got to be sort of like part of the boys club, but not one of the boys, and sort of I don't know. It was fun because the atmosphere that time period was, or the story that we were telling there with Stratton Oakmont and the sort of no holds barred crazy boys club. It was cool to be the single woman in there who could just with a look shut someone down, you know?
You certainly did.
I felt powerful.
No doubt. So when you think about your roles, whether it's this movie, Wolf, like what are you looking for in a role? What kind of challenges you and pushes you?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll tell you what I'm really attracted to about the women that I've gotten to play in Marty's films is the authenticity of who they are. Obviously, Irene and, well, Kimmy, both based on real human beings.
Right.
We're actual people in the world. So for me as an actor, being called upon to tell a real story, the truth of a human being's life, I felt a tremendous amount of pressure to get it right and to dig into the humanity, because you see glimpses of these women in difficult scenarios. I mean, Kimmy was in this boys club. Irene's married to a man who, frankly, a little bit of a monster. But you know, these are real people who were in these real situations, and Irene still loved Frank and still stayed with Frank and found a way to make a family life with Frank. So what is, as an actor, digging into that humanity and finding the deeper truths of why, that, as an actor, that's what turns me on.
That's really interesting because you think of that situation, some people on the surface would say, how could you love that man? How could you be in a relationship with him? And it's like, actually, it's really easy to just be like, you know what, we're going to keep this thing together. We have family, we have kids. Like, I'm just going to survive. Like, that's something that as you dig a little deeper, you're like, okay, there's some real human stuff going on here.
Yeah, and human beings have a tremendous capability for compartmentalization. So the Frank that was out there working for Russell Buffalino may not have been the Frank that was at home with Irene.
Two different guys.
I mean, who knows? You know, I will never truly know. I mean, I do have some indication of the reality of her life because, believe it or not, Irene's granddaughter worked on the film.
Oh, wow.
She is in the movie world as in the wardrobe department. And she was incredibly generous with information about Irene, and I tried to pull a lot of those real authentic details into my performance. So, I mean, you rarely get an opportunity to have that kind of information when you're working on a character.
Yeah, I was going to say, had you ever had that sort of connection, like that you'd met a family member or somebody like that? Or?
Never.
Wow.
No, not like that. And I've, you know, on Broadway, I understudied the role of Judy Garland in The Boy from Oz. And so, you know, there's volumes of performance and you can read books and stuff, but to be firsthand with, oh, this was your relation?
Nothing like that.
I mean, yeah, no, you can't get any closer to the source than that.
Totally.
So.
I like to talk about Broadway with people when they come through because the theater thing is such an important part in terms of transitioning to film or TV. What did it do for you in your career?
Well, I think it's also a great launching point. So many New York actors, right?
Totally.
I think theater teaches you something that I feel you cannot learn anywhere else, which is the immediate exchange of energy between an audience and a performer. It's immediate, it's in the moment. They're either with you or they're not. You feel that, you make adjustments in the moment to, you know, stay on track with your any given audience, any given night. That doesn't necessarily exist on screen because it's a much more technical medium and you don't necessarily hear people responding to you because the sound department is like, shh, you're messing up the take. But that ability to adjust in the moment and stay facile and light on your feet that you learn in theater, when applied correctly to film, I think is where the magic happens. Being able to stay in a moment so completely on film and adjust to whatever is coming at you.
I feel like that holds true for the industry also. You just have to adjust, stay light on your feet because like even from when you first started, like it's so different, you know? So how have you adapted with all the change that has gone on the last 10, 15, 20 years?
I mean, I've you know, adapt or die, right? here's the good news. I have 2 young boys,
That
and
helps.
yeah, I mean, honestly, they keep me on my toes, and I don't just mean in terms of technology, which is a big part of the way the industry has changed, but just keeps me free and young. And so you change, you adapt. I mean, and this is like the perfect example of this gigantic prestige movie coming to Netflix.
Yeah,
and the way that Netflix has changed the game.
Transform the game.
It really has, and it's sort of this great equalizer for a beautiful piece of art like this, for people who aren't necessarily going to have the money to get a babysitter and go 3.5 hours to sit in a film and pay the price of admission and blah, 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 blah. Like, people get to see this now.
Yeah, access.
Access.
International access, too.
Yeah.
Like, you can't measure how many millions and millions of people will see this film. Even the best films in this country don't stack up to what Netflix is able to do.
That's exactly right. And that's, and that's part of our shifting landscape in the industry, and some of it is really great. I mean, I think that's actually just, and there's no downside to it, in my opinion. The people who want to access the scope of the big screen vision will have the opportunity, and the people who like, well, I just really want to see that film, but I'm going to need to take a break in the middle of it because I have to run and get my kid from preschool, and then they can see it too.
But can still appreciate the art just in a different way.
Exactly, new eyes.
Absolutely, and especially if it's a film like this too, where it's like Scorsese and there's Netflix involved. Like, some people have really banged on the whole Netflix thing, and it's like, it's still beautiful art. People are still going to see it. It may not be in the theater like it was in the 1950s or 60s, but like, come on, it's 2019.
It is, and people are consuming it differently, and you can either drill down and say it has to stay this way, or you can say, I'm going to open myself up to the possibility that art can still exist on a small screen. Maybe it's not ideal.
Sure.
And certainly I encourage everyone to see this on a big screen because it is stunningly beautiful, and nothing that Martin Scorsese does is ever accidental in a frame.
It's all
You know what I
intentional.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, see it all if you can, but see it. Everyone will get to see it.
What would you change about the industry if you could? Like, are there things you don't like? Are there things you would like to change?
Wait, how long do we have?
We could go all hour on that one.
No, here's the thing. I feel like wishing I could change things is sort of like screaming into the wind.
Yeah.
Finding my way through the ever-shifting landscape is my job.
I like that.
I've made a lot of transitions in the last several years, whether it be from medium to medium, but also just realizing, I'm a storyteller too, and I don't have to necessarily wait around for other people to tell the story so I can be part of them. Maybe I'll start producing and creating my own ideas, and the advent of technology has actually made someone like me who wasn't trained to be a cinematographer or a screenwriter, has actually made it easier for me to access the different things that I need to tell a story.
Totally. I love that approach because it's like, if you don't like how something's going, like, do something about it.
Yeah.
Of course, you could say something, but action is the only way this gets done. And you can tell the story now. You can be the producer, create your own content. You know?
Can. And if you feel compelled to tell a story, then even if it doesn't have to be the whole world who sees it, if it's really important to you as a creator to tell a story, do it.
Totally.
Just do it.
What are some of the stories you'd still like to tell or be involved with? Like, what piques your interest still?
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, they say write what you know or to speak about what you know. My experience right now, that being a woman of a certain age in an industry that prizes, youth and all of these other things, where I find that I've still got some, like, the most vital, important things I've learned in my life are happening now for me.
Like what?
Figuring out how to be a complete human being, figuring out how to be present in any given moment, whether it be with my family or on set or, with my husband over a glass of wine. Those are things that have come to me now because I'm not constantly trying to do everything all of the time for everybody. Taking a moment to breathe. And I think that comes with age, experience, and a comfortability with your own self.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I like that a lot. Yeah, I think that's really important regardless of what you do, because life can go by so quickly. The job stuff is fleeting, but it's like, what really matters?
And there's no promise. There's no promise of tomorrow. So like, you're racing towards a finish line, and it's like, but what if the finish line is sooner than you thought?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Oh my God, such a pleasure.
Thank you. Everybody check this film out. It's out today in theaters, a couple weeks on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it'll be in theaters till the 27th of November, and then it drops on the platform.
Good deal. That's Stephanie. I'm DJ. See you next time here on The Sit Down.